Welcome to Barça today. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. We have the great Miguel Galán, president of FE and AFE lawyer, specialist in sports law, and the man of the moment. Why have you been turning to social media in these last few hours? And well, our community, there are more than 700 people live here right now on Twitch. This morning, I was really looking forward to having you here already, Miguel, so I could listen to you. Good.
Well, thank you very much. It's true that I've gone viral before for other things, but never with as much intensity as now. It seems to be because federation issues like suspending Villar or Rubiales don't have as much impact on the fans. Like these things that directly affect Barcelona, Real Madrid, Sevilla. I don't aim to go viral, become a TikToker, influencer, or anything similar. I mean, I express myself freely, and that legal freedom I have in the end allows me not to go with the flow. And what about the legal narratives imposed by certain people who are aligned with one club or another? Therefore, it will sometimes align with Barcelona's interests, and other times with Real Madrid's, and other times with those of Sevilla, and other times with those of Carlos Rayo. I often remind myself that I don't support either Barcelona or Madrid.
Yeah, that's precisely what we've seen and heard from your official Twitter account just 48 hours ago. Mr. Javier Tebas, president of the league, made some very typical statements of his lately. Because every time he has a microphone in his hand, he brings up Barça. And you have to understand us, Miguel, as Barça fans, it really bothers us that whenever the president of the league has the chance, he talks, and on top of that, it's negative because it doesn't help. I understand that he has the right to give his opinion, but interestingly, every time he speaks, things get worse, and he usually says things against Barça. In this case, about the one-to-one rule and the fair play issue, which you denied, you said it was a lie. That argument that Tebas was saying that Barça was not under that one-to-one rule and that they would have to do things to get in and so on. I mean, we're a bit tired of this. Explain to us why Tebas is lying in this regard.
Well, first of all, what I have to say is that Javier Tebas is protected by freedom of speech. Just like if he didn't speak, people would say he doesn't talk. Just like what happened with Ángel María Villar, who remained silent. After I set him up, he's appeared on all the television channels and seems like a very docile man. But from freedom of expression to a crusade, constantly against Barcelona and sometimes Madrid, but especially Barcelona, it doesn't make sense. I always say that Javier Tebas is the Donald Trump of Spain. I mean, he's very dangerous with Twitter. And, well, I think that if I were in that position in La Liga, as president of La Liga, I would be much more careful about commenting on things publicly. To what you're asking me, let's see. I've been saying this for a long time, and I'm glad that Barcelona's president, Joan Laporta, echoed my sentiments yesterday. Despite rumors of Barcelona paying me, which are false, I have never spoken to him. I've never spoken, met, or talked on the phone with Laporta. We've only seen each other at a few events, nothing more. Yesterday, President Laporta ran into me. He told his club senator that they were following the one-to-one rule. And why does he say that? Laporta, for several reasons, first of all. From my point of view, no one has informed me. He already knows that the new auditor has already given him the green light, which is something new I'm saying today. I think that since the auditor told him, I'm going to account for you now. The 100 million euros from the very important person seat, I'm going to put it in the accounting for you now. Why? Because that was one of the things Tebas said was outside of Rule 1. And the second is because, from a legal point of view, there hasn't been a resolution since January that says otherwise. Let's briefly review the timeline of events so people can understand. In December, In December, Joan Laporta and Football Club Barcelona introduced this financial mechanism, which they refer to as a lever here. And on December 31st, New Year's Eve, you know how New Year's Eves are in Spain, don't you? La Liga says to Football Club Barcelona, hey, this deal is very good. But for it to go through, and for me to accept it, you have to provide me with 40 million euros, which is not stated in any regulation. That is, on December 31st itself. They require an additional guarantee that is not required by any regulations, nor is it completed by the rules, and that's why they can't register Daniel Mo, okay? Barcelona does not give up. In the first week of January, 3 or 4 days later, they present the 40 million. Hey, that's 40 million euros. We're not talking about 10 euros. And then the league says, now yes, because since I asked you for an additional guarantee, now I will put you under the 1-to-1 rule, but I haven't registered Dani Olmo for you. And they appeal it. And we already know what happened. Since that January week when Barcelona, it provides an extra guarantee under Rule 1. Do you agree? No? It turns out the January auditor who recorded that lever as a real asset in the club's accounts, and then another one comes with a different approach, which I think is wrong, but since I'm not an economist and I don't want to argue because then the economist opinions really get on my nerves. But I don't think it's an asset, because I think it's a good asset. But you say, I'll take that one out of the accounts because I think since the very important person seats are unfinished, they can't be counted as assets. When Barcelona presents the accounts to the league, do they say, hey, this isn't included in the accounts because of a disagreement with the auditor? And then in the league, with only 2 days remaining to resolve the Olmo case, they seize the opportunity. He already knew, as I did, that the outcome would favor Barca since the CSI had leaked it. Both to them and to me, they released a statement about me, revealing the financial statements of Football Club Barcelona, revealing data and economic data from the profit and loss account, fulfilling my duty as a board member. Barcelona is out of the 1-to-1 rule since they didn't include this in the accounts submitted to the league. With that, he kills Pajada with one shot. In the Olmo case, being able to appeal administratively, claiming he's not subject to the 1.1 rule and therefore not registered, allowing him to defend himself. Publicly that it's not regulated, 1.1. But there's no resolution, it's just a statement, and then that statement. The next day, when Javier Tebas realizes he made a mistake and reads my viral tweet saying he could be disqualified, he withdraws it. Coinciding as well with another statement from Barcelona telling Tebas that he is not complying and in some way threatening to report him. Later on, we'll talk about that. Therefore, from the date of that statement, Javier Tebas understands that they are outside the rule, 1.1. Well, but that's just what he understands. In law, there is something called legal certainty. What does that mean? That people, the governed, need to have legal certainty with a resolution. Why? Because if you give me a resolution saying that I'm out of Rule 1.1, I can appeal since I have the right to a defense. But what happens? Why don't they make that resolution? If they make that resolution, Barcelona will appeal to the Consejo Superior de Deportes and win. That's why they don't issue the resolution and leave it unresolved. What happened? That yesterday, in one of Javier Tebas' statements, he backed down and softened his stance a bit. He hasn't realized, right? How curious. Of course, after hearing me, President Laporta spoke in the Senate. He said yesterday, he's involved in what they're doing at IFEMA, the Subima, and he said, Barcelona can't sign anyone because until July 1st, they can't sign anyone. After July 1st, we'll see. He doesn't say anything anymore. The Rion is here. Therefore, that's the explanation for why I think the 1-to-1 rule exists, okay? Many people repeat what they hear on Cadena SER, which I believe is a media outlet. In a tweet yesterday, I replied to their repeated lies. No matter how often a lie is told, it won't become true. Just because La Liga is in charge doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. As I mentioned, it would cause significant legal uncertainty since we'd be relying on Javier's mood each morning, whether he wakes up on the wrong or right side of the bed, angry or happy. So, today I wake up happy with Barcelona, so I say, please go ahead. Tomorrow I wake up against Madrid. Today I'm against Barcelona. Tomorrow against Sevilla. No, man, there has to be a resolution in it and something that can be appealed. Therefore, I insist Barcelona is in the 1-1 rule.
That's it, Miguel. It's very clear now in the end. These things give rise to media outlets and people who are not prepared or who don't handle the subject well to talk nonsense and foolishness and spread misinformation. And they create tension. Because also 48 hours ago in Bilbao, when the Nico Williams issue was being discussed on Tele Bilbao. A man live on air started talking about how Barcelona falsifies accounts about the levers. I mean, Barcelona, legally speaking, with the sale of assets that Miguel has done, has he committed any illegality? It's just that it seems like we've committed, like we've stolen something. I don't know. No.
He hasn't committed any illegality. Because also there's an interesting fact that was alleged by the lawyers from Barcelona in the sanction. This future sanction that Union of European Football Associations could impose is a very important thing. And also it coincides with Atletico Bilbao, and with Real Madrid, because those three clubs are clubs, not sports corporations. Therefore, they must complete a series of tasks to achieve their goals. That financial, which until 3 months ago had Barcelona suffocated, and it has been the guinea pig. Why? Because now it has been softened. That is to say, the new modification of financial flexibility that was talked about recently would have allowed at least to register Dani Olmo, who has taken responsibility for Barcelona's recent struggles. They changed the rules after leaving it in the sun, allowing others to benefit just like Delhi did. Quite harsh, isn't it? That's what Javi did. Now it turns out you lower the wage bill. Barcelona has been using leverage for years, though the reason is unclear. The journalists talk about leverage. The word leverage with a pejorative tone.
Yes, derogatory, all derogatory.
Nothing connects me. But right now, considering the way Barca was found, I think they deserve a monument for that. They've won the league. They utilized legitimate financial operations that were within their legal rights, although referred to as levers, therefore calling it a lever in a derogatory tone. Well, I think rebel ole for him, because he has kept the club with millions in debt alive. Any other organization with €1 billion in debt would have disappeared and gone into bankruptcy. Do you understand me? And precisely, Barcelona has reached €1 billion in debt because of Bartomeu and his associates and because of Javier Tebas, who allowed it. That is to say, you now. Who allowed them to get into debt up to their eyeballs. Now you come knocking at the door with the tough guy act and say, hey, fix everything in a year, right? Man, give me time and let me make these plans so I can build a new stadium and have more income. So I think in that regard, well, these journalists you're talking about, what Barcelona needs to do, and it's true, there are flaws. Barcelona's legal services are good, as seen in their strong defense of Olmo and Union of European Football Associations as effective representation in this case. But they're missing people from the legal department, legal spokespersons, instead of having Miguel Galán come out, who isn't a Barca fan. Or for them to come out and take action and stand up to the president of La Liga, like he does on Twitter. There should be an economic spokesperson who speaks out on Twitter and issues statements, resigning every time this man appears, so they also have media power. Because if not, if BASA doesn't come out to refute with legal arguments and President John is not that he's unprepared, he doesn't have to do that job. It should be a spokesperson from the legal services or a spokesperson from the executive board. So a series of things are said that in the media will seem like they're true, right? We'll also discuss the Negreira case and similar matters, because no one comes out to deny it. And what if a journalist in Bilbao says that Barca falsifies accounts and the next day Barcelona files a lawsuit against him for slander and libel? You'll see how there are journalists who won't see what they'll say. Barcelona has filed numerous lawsuits against journalists who accuse them. We'll see about the sports corruption and falsehood. But Barcelona, I don't know why, doesn't want to get into that legal battle against journalists or commentators when Barcelona is already being condemned for sports corruption without there being a verdict.
Exactly, and the reputational damage to the club is irreparable. Because, and of course, now try to explain all of this we're talking about here to the average person. It's not easy because it's already been told so many times, as you said, Miguel. A lie told many times, in the end, people believe it. And what if the club doesn't deny it outright? Well, in the end, that doubt is planted and people keep bringing up these kinds of issues. The Negreira case, what's the status as of today, Miguel? At what stage of the process is the Negreira case?
Well, look, the Negreira case. There was a challenge by the lawyers of Albert Soler, which was also joined by the defense of Football Club Barcelona and Joan Laporte and Company, in which they challenged the extension of the investigation that the judge had granted. Why? because it had been notified to the parties 15 days later, because it was done after 7 months without any action, that is, in the last extension of the investigation. Before this, the judge says, for theft in the investigation, because a report from the civil guard and the statements from these gentlemen are missing. Therefore, it can't be done until I can carry out this procedure, these testimonies, until the civil guard's report is ready. Well, it turns out this was in June, in November of 2024. That report from old age and survivors insurance is made and submitted. Well, from November until June, until now, well, until May, until it was approved, until March, until it was approved, there hasn't been any action taken. Hey, well, if you say that until the report is ready and the report is published in November, what about you from November to March? Is that 5 months or 4 months? A period of action? They don't have a justification and then they conduct an evidentiary hearing. Because you've had all these months to conduct these testimonies? What happened? As the newspaper Copa and Foto said, as Miguel Galán said, and Copa and Foto are not suspected of being Barça fans, they said the Negreira case, they literally said it, was about to be closed. Like I said, it was about to be closed. What happened? Due to media pressure, legal criteria that differ from mine, or other factors? Your Honor, the provincial court has decided to dismiss these gentlemen's appeal and the evidentiary proceedings will continue. Okay, Ojo, will it continue? With the risk that these lawyers will continue appealing this and finally the final verdict, or could that annul everything because it was done wrong? The evidentiary hearing, but well, it's still ongoing. And then the evidentiary hearing continues. What happens? The witness testimonies are scheduled for September 18th, September 18th. This extension that was just granted has also ended. You have to approve another extension for these days? That is another 6 months to get us into 2026. Therefore, this is doomed to absolute failure. Because this judge has inherited a judicial procedure from another judge, and with all due respect to her honor, well, the previous judge did a very poor investigation, right? To charge the crime of bribery, to Negreira right away, considering Negreira a public official, I mean, a series of things. So what I'm saying, and I've said it on social media, is something that bothers people. I'm one of only 2 legal experts in this country who says it, the other being Tony Frickster, a Barça fan. I'm the only impartial legal expert, as I don't support any team. There you have it, someone independent, truly independent, who says he doesn't see any sign of sports corruption, and since I've studied this crime myself, because it's a very recent offense, because 10 or 12 years ago, this crime didn't exist. The crime existed, the usual crime of corruption or public corruption, corruption in business, but this one, sports corruption, is new. Due to limited case law, primarily from the Osasuna case, we must figure it out gradually. The Osasuna case law won't apply here when someone says it doesn't apply anymore. And besides, if we take the Osasuna case, it further reinforces the idea that Barcelona is innocent. Why? Because look, the crime of sports corruption is what is legally called a crime of mere result. What does that mere result mean? Or of early consummation? That it doesn't need the crime to have been committed for it to be a crime. But in this case, there isn't a single piece of evidence that a president of Barcelona, a board member, a coach, a player, met with Negreira and with the referee. And they've said, look, I'll pay you these 8.5 million because I want you to fix this match and that match on that day. He called 2 penalties in favor of Real Madrid over Barcelona. He gave out 2 red cards. That doesn't exist in their Madrid, because I asked myself the following question, the following reflection. And to all the fans watching us, to commit crimes. If I had to commit a crime in my life, I would also use intelligence, just like I use it to get a master's degree or to do preparation for an interview or to do. If I had to commit a crime, I'd say that if I have to pay off a referee, I'd go and do it. 300,000 or 500,000 or 1 million in cash from the account and in a briefcase. I don't know where, but I'm going to pay bills with bank transfers, leaving a trail in the bank accounts at the tax office. To fix a match, I would be the dumbest criminal in the world.
Because I would leave
Evidence. Therefore, that shows the naivety of Barcelona, who paid that money for neutral reports, really. Because if I want to pay to fix matches, I bring you the money in a briefcase. I bring the money. I don't make transfers and declare it to...
with everything declared.
It doesn't make sense. In declared, it has a declared sense of sports corruption crime. Therefore, I don't see the crime of sports corruption even as an early confirmation. That is not even as an intention, because there is no evidence. Because Mr. Negreira's tax statement, where he said that Barcelona paid to maintain normality, first, it's not valid in court, and second, it can be interpreted in 1,000 ways. Therefore, what we have now in the Negreira case are suspicions. They're not even clues, because I wouldn't even raise them to the category of clues. Clues aren't enough to convict either, because there are many people who support convicting based on clues. In court cases, convictions are rarely based on clues alone. It might occur once in a million times. They are convicted based on evidence. We're discussing unconfirmed theories and speculations. Suspicions are not indications or evidence and cannot be used to convict someone. As the vice president of the referees, he likely influenced promotions and demotions and escorted referees to the Camp Nou locker room tunnel. So do I suspect that they gave a suitcase full of money, or that they paid that money because they were awarded a penalty? Hey, no, first of all, from an evidentiary point of view, as Emilio Cortés, a law professor, already said, it's diabolical. It can't be proven. The causal link between a penalty awarded to Barcelona and those payments. And what happens? That if I've been awarded 3 penalties, why were those 3 penalties given? Yeah, because I paid, that's it. There has to be a connection. There has to be a connection between the payment and sports corruption. No, man, sports corruption is, like me, for example, when I reported the case of the Spanish Super Cup, because I had audio recordings of Gerard Piqué with Mr. Rubiales, which have been made public on all the television channels, where Gerard Piqué said to Mr. Rubiales, I've secured 7 sticks, meaning 7 million euros, and 4 more sticks, though they may not get those. That's why I filed the complaint, but we'll see what happens later. But do you have any evidence? Yes, because they're recordings. If I had a recording of, I don't know, Alfonso Pino Zamorano, who's a friend of mine, Alfonso Pino Zamorano, with Enrique Negreira, he was told, hey, take this money, 100,000 euros. Barcelona gave it to me. And, you know, in the 90th minute, you have to send this one off, and you have to do it. Don't worry, Barcelona is going to win. For example, I'm putting something on. That proves it. The evidence is in the WhatsApp message and email. There are no referee testimonies or any testimonies at all. You could say there are testimonies from 3 referees or people claiming that Negreira gave them something on a specific day and date, but no such testimonies exist. There are no transfers from Negreira, his black company, or his son to any football referee. Do you understand me? Therefore, and then all these things would fall apart, and many legal experts know it. I don't know why they don't speak out publicly.
This, with all the damage done to Barça, obviously due to everything discussed in the press, with what you're saying, Miguel, I hope that Barça acts sooner or later and really files lawsuits and defends itself. Defend the institution, because the Barça brand itself has been very damaged. Added to that, with the issue of the levers we've talked about before, we're seen as ogres. Barça is an ogre right now in Spain. It's a club that steals, that has done things, and it's not like that. It's just not like that. It's really tough.
Look, right now, I don't remember, but I think all these payments coincided with the era of Guardiola.
Teams with the best Barça in history, featuring Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta.
Of course, let's see. It also coincides with the fact that we won the World Cup with them, Spain, with all the Spaniards. So I think, hey, let's see. Both the sports and legal narratives are flawed.
The best
Barcelona in history, with the best player in the world at that time, Mr. Messi, along with other top players in the world, Xavi and Iniesta and company, Puyol and others.
They have
achieved that success because of the way they played. And I'm a professional soccer coach with a Union of European Football Associations Pro License and Level 3. Can I vouch for that? Do you understand me? Have there been specific moments of refereeing mistakes? Refereeing mistakes that have benefited Barça? Yes.
For sure, as well.
There are refereeing mistakes that have benefited Real Madrid and Getafe. if he had used video assistant referee, there wouldn't have been refereeing mistakes, as there was something there. I mean, there are refereeing mistakes. Now, with video assistant referee, just imagine when there was no video assistant referee. So in this case, they're refereeing mistakes. Let's see that in the history of football. Not just with Barcelona or Madrid, there could have been a referee who was bribed. Our minds can imagine that because it can happen in any profession. In 80 years or 50 years of refereeing, both in professional football and in non-professional football. Well, now someone has found out, just like we're finding out now, that I just learned the government of Navarra has paid 40 million euros to a company to close. That is, well, it's fine for the same reason then. That this can happen in all professions. That can happen.
For the most part.
So I think the Negreira case already smells bad and causes harm. And you know what happens? This is a critique of Real Madrid and Javier Tebas for acting as plaintiffs.
I'm going to ask you about that precisely now, about the fact that they have appeared to look for, what are they looking for? I mean, to cause harm, right? In the end, right? Because if there's a natural process, I understand that they have the right, to appear, right? Since supposedly they feel like they've been harmed, right? But there's nothing, of course, Miguel.
Of course, but if I were Joan, I would tell Florentino first. Do you want me to support you with the Super League and I go with you to the Super League and you turn against me? Either you get out of this right now or go your own way. I'll make my Super League, you make your Super League, and I'll make my Super League.
That's how it is.
Let me see. And the league? I mean, one of the ones, one of the not one. Along with Real Madrid, the two most important clubs in the world. You present yourself against rivals in your league to devalue their image. Ultimately, this devalues the image and income of the league that you so strongly defend. Well, I think it backfired on them because yesterday the president announced that next year the income record will be broken. And when the Camp Nou opens, this could be huge. Therefore, I think all this hasn't been useful for them at all. These things, but it's true that I do miss seeing more legal forcefulness from Barcelona in some matters. For instance, they could file a complaint against Javier Tebas over the confidentiality issue to keep him somewhat restrained, but they prefer not to. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you won't be able to control Javier Tebas unless you file a complaint against him.
In fact, Miguel, in your tweet the other day, you were very clear. That is, you go straight to filing a complaint. So, for the crime he committed by publishing that Barça report publicly, which is something totally illegal, he should be completely disqualified from La Liga. Is that right? You even said on Guillantes that if any Barça member files a complaint, that could also go forward. Okay, let's see.
Yes, in the crime? As such, well, there could be an alleged crime of disclosure of secrets and it could be prosecuted through criminal proceedings. It would have to be studied. Now, in administrative proceedings, there is a very serious infraction. And also, since there are precedents in which I am a participant and the main protagonist. The key events are Ángel María Villar's dismissal, Rubiales' disqualification, and Pedro Rocha's appointment. That is to say, with similar cases, in some a little less serious, like the case with Chess, you leave, I have been disqualified. No more and no less than the currently active president of the Spanish Football Federation, an even more important position than president of the league. Of course, I see this issue very clearly. He has breached the duty of confidentiality that he must have with all the clubs. How did he discover it? The following day, since it's the first time I've seen the league correct or remove a statement from their website. Do you understand me? Why? Because they realized, so what's going on? Now, let's talk about how to file a complaint. Look, to start a complaint, that is done before the Consejo Superior de Deportes, before the Secretary of State for Sports. Uribe has a strong dislike for Tebas and the government, more than you can imagine. Barcelona must capitalize on the Socialist Party's power and Uribe's presence, or it will be impossible once Feiju takes over. He is a close friend of Luzan, the president of the federation, and Luzan is with Javier Tebas in the federation, and so on. To start that, you must file a complaint. To do so, you need active legitimacy or active standing in law. What does that mean? That you have an interest and that it affects you directly. So who has that interest and who has active standing? First of all, Barcelona as a legal entity because it has been the one harmed. And then going a bit deeper legally. The members who faithfully pay their dues and who are members of Barcelona are members of Barcelona. And by being a member of Barcelona, you can file a complaint with the Higher Sports Council addressed to Mr. Uribes. And it's very easy. Any member with a digital electronic certificate writes the complaint and submits it at the electronic headquarters of the Higher Sports Council. He looks for it on the internet with his digital electronic certificate, identifying himself, providing his membership card to prove that he is a member of Barcelona, and Uribes is accused, and Uribe begins the process. It's that simple.
Is that
Simple. Therefore, any member of Barcelona could start. They would have to provide the famous statement that's in my tweet, notarized, because they've already deleted it because they control it. They provide the notarized statement, which I have in my Twitter. They provide the member's card and their identification. They file a report explaining a bit. If you don't have a lawyer in law, anyone, just grab CGPT and type the disqualification I did of Pedro Rocha, which is the disqualification of the president of the Spanish Football Federation on the internet. Take that disqualification, put it in CGPT and say, make me a complaint similar to this one about Pedro Rocha. For those who have no idea, and with that, he does it, period. That's it, label, because nowadays there isn't any. It's very... Man, normally Barcelona would be doing this with Laporta leading the way. But if God doesn't want it, then any member or a group of members can do it.
fantastic? I think the topic has been left even more clear in case someone wants to do it. Miguel, I'm going to ask you about Real Madrid and about Florentino. What's going on with Madrid? With the stadium situation and the concerts that they're no longer bringing in money from? Can Madrid sign players? Can't they sign players? Is everything allowed for Madrid? What do you think? This topic about Madrid isn't often discussed in the media due to its lack of coverage.
Well, the first thing I have to say is that the environmental crime with the stadium that the neighbors have reported from the United States, well, it's a bit of a stretch because you have to prove that there has actually been an impact on the health of some people, although it has very good legal grounds, that complaint for excessive blondness, for an environmental crime. So I understand that having a house next door and having that stadium next to it, well, the regulations don't allow it. So, of course, it's not possible. Any nightclub in Madrid plays music too loud and the neighbor upstairs complains and files 2 complaints and that nightclub gets shut down. Because I've experienced it with some friends who own nightclubs and their nightclubs have been shut down for excessive noise. Or the tea houses, which are now called tea houses. And I have a friend in Vallecas. In fact, I have a friend in Vallecas whom I defended and they shut down his tea house. The neighbors upstairs reported him to the neighborhood association for making more noise than usual. They took him to court. I don't understand, just like here, according to the complaint filed by the neighbors. The decibel limit allowed by Madrid regulations has been exceeded by 2,000 times. And it's not so much about the stadium. And that's something you have to be careful about. The deals that Real Madrid may have made based on those contracts, or do they seem just as legitimate to me as those of Barcelona? I'm not going to dismiss what I don't understand about the double standard in La Liga. Regarding those deals of Real Madrid, compared to Barcelona's deals, that's what I'm getting at. Or Real Madrid's deals and Barcelona's deals regarding Union of European Football Associations, right? Why is there that double standard for Madrid? But I'm not really going to criticize those financial operations by Florentino. I think they're fine. Just like Laporte's financial operations, I think they're fine. I'm not going to criticize them. Everything. Why? Because I believe in the free market. It's just that I'm against financial fair play. It's just that it goes against European Union law. Can you imagine a rule in Spain or Europe that tells Mercadona or Resol or Carrefour how much they have to spend and earn each year?
But why? Is that what happens here in football? Ultimately, these laws prevent us from competing on equal terms with the Premier and others.
Of course, against the state-owned clubs where an Arab comes in and puts in €1 billion, you can't compete. They don't let them grow. I mean, that's how I see it, but it's Real Madrid's own fault, Barcelona's own fault. Why? Because they should have already reported this to the European Union, to the European Court of Justice. So there would be a case, Bosman, but for clubs, and they said, hey, don't limit what I can spend or what I put in SAPO. That goes against Article 101 and 102 of the Treaty on European Union, because this is the free market. And what if I want to spend 3 billion, 5 billion without having it? I go bankrupt. Wouldn't that be a problem for the Barça members who allowed that man to spend this? But it's not the free market's fault. I mean, that control that La Liga and Union of European Football Associations want to exercise. Javier Tebas' comments about Barça fans not being mature enough to take care of themselves seem childish to me. And what if he hears or doesn't hear? If we get to a point where Real Madrid and Barcelona have a budget of 10 billion euros and Getafe has 10, well, hey, it's like Apple, which has $200 billion, and the computer company across from Mica Samparla has 10,000 euros. Is this the law of the market, polished capitalism, or are we now turning the league into a communist league? Am I?
Do you understand me? Do you understand me? Yes, yes, yes. And what about Real Madrid television? What do you think, Miguel, about what Madrid has done with this television? Every week with the referees at the start of the matches. I mean, I understand that every club has the right to do whatever they want with their television channel. But to influence the referees group in that way, every other day so explicitly, and then they act like, no, I have nothing to do with that. This is like, I mean, yes, it's ours, but no, I mean, what's this about? What's this about?
Well, I have two opinions on this matter, a legal opinion and an ethical and moral opinion. I simply disagree with Real Madrid's television approach on ethical and moral grounds. Against the referees and doing that kind of reporting in some way to pressure the referee and the legal opinion, I think Real Madrid has freedom of expression. They can make those videos without any consequences. Do you understand? So both Real Madrid television and Barça television or any other kind of television have freedom of expression. As long as they don't cross the line into slander, libel. When there is coercion or pressure towards a referee, they ask me for freedom of expression. Now, from the point of view of a soccer fan, it's not right. Why? Because that television is watched by many minors.
Who play soccer and
who are then going to go to the soccer fields, to a soccer field in Villaverde or Parla or Getafe. They'll tell the 15-year-old ref to take away the other one. Why? Because we have to learn to respect the referee, even if he makes mistakes against our teams. So we have to start respecting. And I also don't think it's right, I don't think it's right either, that before a final, some referees appear at a press conference. I was one of the first to defend that referees should have freedom of expression to be able to speak to the press and make statements, and I defended it. And when Lusa arrived, they attempted it. But what you can't do is do it the day before a final and say what that referee, that linesman, said against Madrid, because then you're already influencing things. Do you understand me? And then, but...
Because they felt very offended by what Madrid television did? Yes, but no.
You can't say that before a final, because then look how the match turned out. But then, because... We're talking to you about discussing a future match and a future team. If you make those statements, why don't you wait until after the match? Or why don't you make them a week earlier? Why do you do it the day before the match? The day before the match. The Habits want to hold a press conference. I agree, but not to talk about controversies. To talk about things related to the match, about how you feel, how you approach this match, what you think about one team's play or the other team's play. But not to talk about television controversies or the Negreira case or any other case. No, because it would turn into a football gossip show. No, yes.
I'm with you on that, Miguel. I'm with you. What happens is that I think, as it was coming, this has a path to follow. That's it. Maybe the man felt so pressured and so that he let it out, but maybe he's right. Maybe the best thing would have been to talk only and exclusively about the match and the post-match, then speak out publicly. Use a microphone and express your feelings, stating the specific reasons behind them. I don't like that it was said, as it caused harm. My professional judgment has been questioned, but ultimately, I'll share my personal opinion with you.
The legal opinion is the same as on the television program. I would tell him if I were that referee who made those statements and the president of the Luzon Federation comes to scold me for making those statements. Hey, if I hold a press conference, I should have the freedom to discuss any topic I choose. You can't restrict what I say. I should be able to express my views on everything. As long as I don't insult or slander anyone, which I didn't do here. Therefore, if it has been brought to the forefront, the Spanish Football Federation is responsible. If the arena and wanted to say that, the one responsible is the Spanish Football Federation, not the referee who says that in his freedom of expression, as we all have in our freedom of expression. From a Christian perspective, as the president of the referee committee, I would strongly advise against getting involved in this. What's the need? Do you understand me? However, freedom of speech protects the referee and press conference attendees, so he may have a need.
Exactly. Miguel, something brief to wrap up. Also, I don't want to take too much of your time from the call to action. What do you say? I mean, with everything that's happened this year, they want to change everything. What do you think needs to be done at the call to action for it to work in the best possible way? The issue of referees and the application of rules such as offside, penalties, and handballs. So what is Miguel Galán's opinion on this subject? Refereeing, purely refereeing?
Well, the first thing I have to say is this. Why don't we know the referees' rankings during the season? Why is that kept secret? Hey, we're going to know during the season what position each referee is in. You know what I mean? And take advantage of artificial intelligence and new technologies for the appointments. In a list of 40 referees, one is first, one is third, one is second to last, one is up for promotion, and one for relegation. Avoid consistently assigning the highest and lowest ranked officials to officiate important matches. Not officiate anything good, but say, hey, this guy has refereed and use that a little bit. For starters, the last place referee in the first league officiated my match, and he did an amazing job. Everyone should know that. Or so we know, hey, how is it possible that this referee was demoted? As seen on television, he performed well in all the matches. This demonstrates transparency and good governance. Very nice for the kind of football played in other European leagues. Hey, we all know, hey, if we know that Cadiz or Celta are at the bottom, then why can't we know that Gil Manzano is at the bottom? How should I know? Real Madrid or Barcelona are usually first, but it's hard to keep track of who's leading at any given time. To begin with, any known act needs more independence and should be somewhat more on the outside. Above all, appoint more qualified and less politicized individuals. Like the ones who are there now, right? They voted for Luzan, Rubiales, and Rocha before that, forcing the referees to vote for them. There is electoral corruption there, which I've experienced firsthand. I don't believe there's sports corruption, but the referees are involved in electoral corruption. The referees are told who to vote for, either Villarroviars or the current leader, and are handed the vote directly. I've seen that myself, so there really is corruption there. I think what's going to happen, according to my information, is that the position of president of the call to action will be eliminated. They're all going to be out, and there will be a chief executive officer of the referees, and the chief executive officer of the referees doesn't have to be a referee or have been a referee, which could also be a mistake, always putting people who have been referees. If what is needed is management, organization, administration, and then coordination with the league for the matter of promotions and relegations, preparation. Increase salaries so that no one is tempted to sell themselves to a club. Because poor, very good, which is what used to happen before. They earned very little, so they weren't registered with Social Security. In the past, if they were fired, they couldn't claim unemployment. Many referees from the past haven't had a pension because they were referees. All those labor rights still need to be improved a lot for referees who didn't have them before. So they need to be improved. So it needs to be improved because if a referee is earning €500,000 a year, he knows he's going to have his pension. He knows that if he's let go, if he drops a category or gets fired or has an injury or retires because of age, he'll be covered. He will have 2 years of unemployment benefits. He won't be tempted to bet or tell a friend to place a bet so that Barcelona or Madrid loses this match, right? He sets financial goals and requests a penalty to avoid that feeling. Therefore, if the league has $1 billion, €2.5 billion in television rights, and a total turnover of 10 or 15 billion. We can't have referees earning €200,000. You know what I mean? Should we pay the referees more? I mean, we have players. The player who earns the least gets 120,000 on a reserve team. Well, I don't know. There are some very good referees, so they can't all get paid the same. It's unlikely that a newly promoted referee earns the same as one officiating in the Champions League, World Cup, or Euro Cup. He should get paid much more, or the one who's already been in the first division for 5 years should have a higher category. I mean, specialists and laborers should have their own categories, just like in real companies. Incomplete input provided. So I understand it. Regarding habits, changing, not removing the call to action, bringing in a chief executive officer, an organization to organize it, that chief executive officer, right? Open ranking list to know who moves up and who moves down. Improve the video assistant referee.
Apply the
Artificial intelligence is being applied to appointments and many other areas. I don't have deep expertise on the topic. I'm the president of the soccer coaches, which means I know what soccer coaches know. Don't hesitate to ask me, right? But habits? Well, I have my limited opinion, which is this.
And about the topic of coaches, obviously, as president of CENAFE, Miguel, the level in Spain needs to be acknowledged publicly. We should be proud of our coaches. It's amazing. Compared to other European countries, we have coaches all over the world coaching today.
Modesty aside, I could say that the pride is here. That it's me, because anyone who knows the world of coaches and hears the name Miguel Galán will say he's someone who has been around for 20 years. And 20 years ago, together with the government, they passed a law to regulate the training of soccer coaches through the Spanish educational system. Today, thanks to Miguel Galán, hundreds of coaches are coaching abroad. For reaching an agreement with Luzán, the Spanish Football Federation president, after having gotten rid of 3 others, I must mention that as well. Since 2000, when Royal Decree 320/2000 was issued, the famous license was given to Guafa Pro. And then football coach training was introduced into the Spanish education system. Well, the level has gone up, and we are the best in the world. I say this having been in the United States, China, and Mexico. So I've visited my coaches abroad and spoken to other coaches and people. Other countries, they write to me so I can sell to them, not to teach them, to sell to them. My know-how from my company, CENACE, about the content, about Google's entry. Well, yes, that's right. It's
to show off. It's to show off. That's right.
People get in line. The diplomas are now held at private and public centers of the Spanish Ministry of Education instead of the Federation. Of course, in the past, what used to happen, which still happens sometimes, I've been very critical. Diplomas were awarded to former soccer players like Artidan, Asabi, and many others, solely for having been soccer players. I oppose giving out diplomas just because someone played soccer. There are many examples of this happening. The world of soccer is full of great players who turned out to be terrible coaches like Lothar Matthaus and Maradona, who tried to be coaches and failed. On the other hand, some of the world's best coaches were never soccer players themselves, like Ryosaki, Mourinho, and others as well. They were soccer players who became world-class coaches, such as Guardiola and Ancelotti, who is
completely full?
Oh, that it's completely full of. But I defend the best coach because I come
from the grassroots and the neighborhood. Of course I do. I'm from Bolus, a town in Huelva County. I have friends from here in Huelva, from Bolus and the surrounding county. They were training in China and Qatar, and they have level 3, and they're living really well there and super happy. And I say, man, it's just amazing. And they tell me about it, actually. Personal friends of mine who get their certifications and tell me, man, it's mind-blowing. In fact, now I think there's a training or something in Madrid. Now in Madrid, soon
Congress, yes, they've invited me tomorrow. A Congress, they've invited me. It's the first time in the history of the Spanish Fire Federation that they've invited me to the Coaches Congress. And therefore, I'm going to go out of respect since they've never invited me before. I've always stood up to presidents. Now that we have a good relationship, I've been invited and will attend. I'll tell you an anecdote about my friend from China. I have many students in China and Qatar. But in January, I was in the United States for a personal matter. It then coincided with the time when FAPRO granted the license, which I unlocked. And so I was at the Los Angeles Embassy processing my son's birth certificate. And he cut off a story in Los Angeles at the embassy. And quickly, a coach wrote to me, Miguel Angel, I'm 10 kilometers away from you. I want to have a coffee. Can I see you or something? I said, look, I'm here at the embassy. I'm going up now. The guy got in his car, drove for some distance, and I went downstairs. We had coffee at a startup across the street next to the Embassy of Spain in the United States in Los Angeles. He told me he'd been in the United States for 14 years after falling in love with a girl there during training and that he didn't have the WFA Pro license. And thanks to my agreement with Luzán, well, they had. And he could have already filled out the form, and he stayed there to live after that. And he was earning $150,000 a year for coaching.
A kids team. Damn, man, it's just incredible. It's incredible. It's crazy. And
that's it. I appreciated it. I was grateful and, well, like that a lot. Because people write to me from other parts of the world. How good in Mexico. So, yes.
We have a
very good formative health of coaches.
Fantastic. Well, Miguel, I think everything we've discussed here has been very interesting. We could discuss this for many more hours, but I won't take up your time. I sincerely thank you for being here with us at Barça. Today, over 700 people are watching our Twitch channel at this early hour, which is incredible. This video will also be shared on our YouTube channel. They go to Flip Party tonight, and we'll be delighted to see you. Thank you very much, really. And this is your home for whatever you need, whenever you want. Count on us for everything. And congratulations on your courage, on your independent work, on soccer, always keeping an eye, as I say, on the ball, which a lot of people put their team scarf ahead of the interest of soccer many times. And even though I'm a Barça fan and all, but I think we need a lot more people like you. And I'm not saying this to look good or anything, but because I think it's necessary. Nowadays, Miguel, I think that's how it is.
Well, I think they're going to infect me already. In that sense, I don't support any team. The day before yesterday, I was on Juanma Rodriguez's show. I've been on El Chiringuito. I'm friends with with this one, with Ronchelo, with Alfredo Duro, and also with Jay Jordi. So I don't have any in that regard. Anyone who is my friend has to show respect. I'm not a Barça fanatic in Barcelona, except for being a fan of the singer Rafael. Incredible. Well, Miguel.
Miguel, thank you so much. Take care and see you soon. And let's see if Barça is in the 1-1 rule, man. I think so. We can register Nico Villa, as Fabrizio Romano said this morning, that almost everything is done, which is fantastic. If the president has jumped into the pool, there must be water in it. I'm certain of it. Take care. Thank you so much, Miguel. A big hug. See you later. It's been a pleasure. A pleasure. Thank you very much.